that is the rundown of chores. Now we get into allowance. Some people like to tie allowance to chores. So in other words, they're doing their chores, they get paid an allowance. It could be that is similar to how we go to work and we get paid for our work. Okay, that's fine. That's one way. Some people do not like to have allowances tied to chores because they feel that chores is something they should do as being part of the family. And everyone has responsibilities. We do as moms. We have things we have to do. Our husbands have something they have to do. So whatever it might be, whichever way you prefer is fine. So an allowance could be something they get because here are the chores that you're doing. And then, obviously, they don't get paid if they don't do the job. And if you do allowances for that, you could pay another child or doing their job. So, or that person would. You have to pay your sister $3 because they had to set the table for you. So that's how that could work if it's tied to the chores. Again, that's totally up to you which way you want to do it. All right. So again, on allowance, the first way to start is what are you trying to teach them? What do you want them to learn? Probably about money and the lessons about money so that if they buy something that's cheap and it breaks, they don't get a new one. Or just the lessons of money that we've all learned. It's easier to start younger when you're not talking about so much money compared to older when they're talking about a lot more money that they could have debt, etc. So money is a great thing to teach children, and so allowance is one way to start that process. So the purpose, what is your purpose, and what are you trying to teach so that you know where to start. And what area? Again, what are you willing to let go of control? If they have money and their money is for whatever you decide, then you are allowing them to choose that. All right, this gets complicated without an example. So my example is, let's say, school supplies. You know what you spent on school supplies last year, or you can guesstimate what you spent on school supplies last year. So what if you take that amount, let's say it's $50 that you paid for this child to get school supplies, and you take that and you divide it by the number of weeks in the summer, and let's just say for simplicity's sake, it's 10 weeks between now and when they're going to buy their school supplies. And that would be $5 per week they could earn. Now they would have all the money they should need for school supplies because you're giving them $5 a week. So this is why it's important to understand your lesson. If your lesson is to teaching them how to budget their money, then you don't want to be taking away their allowance that they're really going to need because you're not going to send them to school without school supplies. So you can't take away their allowance if they don't do their chores if it really is something you're teaching them more about budgeting and having the money and selecting the right school supplies within that budget at the end of the year. So you have to really understand your purpose before you start using that as the consequences. If the money they're getting is for their own fun money, let's say they have a hobby that you love that they have, but they always want more of it, whatever it is, some collectible, something they keep wanting more of, they want a new video, whatever it might be, or a book even that they want to buy, but they keep wanting more. Well, then it's their mad money, and that is something they can get, but they can live without. Then you can use the money as part of the consequences. Okay, so then you're giving them enough money so they can handle their school supplies when the time comes in August. When August comes, they choose how to spend their money, but they need to get all the school supplies. So let's say they want to spend more money on a folder or a binder because it has a certain character and it's a lot more than the plain binder. And you would say buy the plain binder and you just put your foot down. Well, they can add up. Can they do it with the money they have? And they might be able to. They might buy cheaper pens or pencils. They might use last year's scissors, whatever it is, so that they can get all their school supplies, get the binder they want. Great. That's teaching them how to manage their money. So that's why I'm saying you have to make sure that whatever you decide to give them allowance on, you're willing to let them handle all of that, all of the consequences and the decisions about that area. So the other thing with whatever area you decide to start with, make sure you start small. And what I mean by that is to not like go through, hey, this is what we spend for clothes for school, this is what you spend for what, and you go through this big list and you start really big. Because if you start too big, sometimes we as parents do not follow through. So start small enough that you're willing to be consistent, all right? And also, it's really, really, really important for kids to get this lesson that it actually is money, cash, dollars, that they can understand, not a piece of paper with an IOU. They don't understand that. It's kind of like understanding credit cards. It's hard to teach credit cards. It's hard to teach that it's money you need to pay back. Eventually, we can get to that in teaching our kids. But to start with an IOU is really hard for them to understand. It's a piece of paper. It's minus and adding. But cash, where they have to turn cash in at the cashier and count it out and get maybe a few change back, that will teach them a lot more than if you have an IOU. So start small and hand them cash. In that way they can help. The other necessity of cash is if you're trying to teach them another thing with money. For example, maybe setting money aside to give to church or charity or to save for a bigger object or even college. So if you're saying we give you $5, you're going to get $1 to church and $1 to savings and $3 for yourself, or vice versa, $1 for yourself and $3. You see what I'm saying? You are helping them divide it up. And then again, that's what cash is for, is help them see it go dividing it up. So then they need 5 singles so they can put it in separate categories and have a place for them, whether it's a piggy bank with separate areas, a jar with separate areas, or envelopes that we use with our kids, and they have the title on it, what it each was for. I don't know of a current way that's easier than actual cash, but I think cash is the best because it means something to them. They're holding it, they're collecting it, they're seeing it grow. And I think that says the most. So I've talked a lot on this, so I've taken a lot of time to explain all this. So I hope you understand. A quick review again, decide what the chore will be, who's deciding, are you deciding, or are you letting them decide? And then make sure that you are setting them up for success, teaching them how to do it and what level of perfection and when's the deadline. Also, possibly, what are the consequences? Is there a natural consequence? Or if you do not do this, this is what will happen. So they know. This is what's expected of them. Okay? Then when we switch to allowance, you may be starting allowance just totally separate, not connected to a chore. Chores are something they're just responsible to do. Allowance is something we're giving you to teach you about money. We spend this on you, and we're going to give it to you to be responsible. And then what area are you letting them purchase from? And it's up to them to spend what they want on those things. For example, we let them collect money over time for gifts when they went to birthday parties. And so, because it always was a struggle, they wanted to buy something bigger than we wanted to spend. And so we gave them a certain amount of money and they saved it up till their friend's birthday. And if they didn't have enough saved, then they wouldn't be able to buy the bigger object. They would have to buy something smaller. And it helped us with the debates we were having. So another decision to make on what to have for allowance might be based on that. So I'm sorry I got talking really long on this video. Hopefully I was able to get you started on some ideas. And we'll move into the discussion portion of our mastermind.